There's a reason these companies exist, and they make sure they manufacture these cookies to taste as good as possible so you continue to eat them. It's not because of the social conditioning that we've been a part of. It's because the cookies taste delicious. And to a kid, there is no shot they are going to choose peas over a cookie. There is no shot. To say that they will is living in a world that does not exist. Alrighty, guys, gals, non-binary pals, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. I'm very excited about the topic that we're going to be talking about today. Before we get into it, though, you see all these lovely people here on the side of the screen. They are here while I'm recording this live. I stream on Twitch every single Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you ever want to come by and join us, we would love to have you. So, yeah, feel free to join us. Today, we are going to be talking about, it's going to be a little bit of a weird video. So, there was a podcast that was released by someone who we've talked about before on the channel. They went by Fierce Fatty, and or Victoria Walmsley is her name. Welsby, not Walmsley, Welsby. And she released, or they released a podcast talking about raising fat positive kids. And now this podcast is obviously it's an hour long, right? And so we're not going to go over the entire thing, but there are certain parts in the podcast where there's just some things that I'm like, that's a little interesting, okay? So this is the podcast right here, and we're going to skip ahead to about 10 minutes in, and then we'll kind of go over what they are talking about in the video. So kind of a little bit of a letting you know what is going on, how this is all starting. So what they're talking about is basically, again, raising fat positive kids, and it talking about the experience that a lot of us have had as, you know, maybe being raised as being someone that was overweight, and how that affects children and all of those things, right? So there's a lot of stuff that I definitely probably agree with them and a lot of the stuff that they're talking about, but there are some points that I wanted to bring up. So that's just to kind of give you a little bit of an overview before we just jump straight into it.
I think that's a stat that I had seen a couple of years ago from, I'm going to link to the account. Go back. Come on. Yeah, so the account is Alyssa Rumsey RD, a registered dietitian. Thin white person, just a heads up there, shared the stat because she'd looked at information on, she's written a book a couple of years ago, and she looked at information on, well, how prevalent is things like eating disorders in kids? How prevalent is things like type 2 diabetes, which society says is caused by fatness? And so we see the message that, oh my God, childhood fatness rates are out of control, and there's just fat kids roaming around eating the good thin kids and destroying the world. And yeah. No. I'm gonna go through some stats
again. This video is they are kind of like everywhere, and so I'm gonna do my best in the editing process to make this make sense after the fact. But it's interesting to me because you could tell by the way that they introduced the person that did this study. They're like, a registered dietitian. So it's funny because they're like, I think that registered dietitians, through the way that they introduced it, is like they're stupid. But if there is some sort of evidence that this registered dietitian puts out that agrees with what they are saying, all of a sudden they are okay with using the information and the study that this person has done, this registered dietitian has done, because it aligns with what they think, right? That's just interesting to me. But this is important, and we'll just keep going.
That's here. But basically a stat that Alyssa shared, which, like a heads up, she's not saying that fatness is caused by type 2 diabetes, but people think that, right? So this is a stat that she shares. Children are 242 times more likely to suffer from an eating disorder than they are from type 2 diabetes. If you took a sample of 100,000 children, only 12 would have type 2 diabetes, but 2,900 would meet the criteria for an eating disorder.
So here, it's interesting because yes, type 2 diabetes is a it's like something that we can test, right? We can say, okay, your blood level, all these things, you have diabetes, right? This is what's going on. But with eating disorders, there are so many different eating disorders, and again, and it says meets the criteria. There are it's just, again, I think that it's silly to compare these two things like that. It just doesn't. I don't understand why you would compare these two things, because it's just, in my opinion, it's unnecessary. I think that eating disorder is bad, and I think diabetes are bad. I don't understand, but we'll keep going.
And again, fatness does not cause diabetes. You cannot eat your way into diabetes.
Stop the cap. Stop the cap right now. Stop the cap.
So let's just go back a few seconds here, and let's re-listen to what was just said, alrighty?
Criteria for an eating disorder. And again, fatness does not cause diabetes. You cannot eat your way into diabetes.
One more time.
Criteria for an eating disorder. And again, fatness does not cause diabetes. You cannot eat your way into diabetes. Diabetes is a genetic condition.
Okay, all right. So this is frustrating because there is a little bit of truth to what is being said here. Of course there is, right? Because no, not every fat person is diabetic. Of course, right? But there is a very disproportionate amount of fat people that are diabetic, so it's clearly not good if you are predisposed to being diabetic, right? The way that I like to explain this is that when it comes to obesity, fatness, not everyone, I believe this, right? Not everyone is born with the chance to become obese, right? There are some people that they are just born, and their appetite and the situations that they are in, obesity is not ever going to be an issue for them, right? But then there are other people that are born being definitely predisposed to it, whether it's the appetite that they have, the environment that they're raised in, all of those things. So they have a much higher chance of becoming obese, right? So when it comes to diabetes, it's the same thing, right? There are certain people that are predisposed to becoming diabetic, and there are certain people that aren't, right? But those people that are predisposed to becoming diabetic, it is definitely, clearly, with all of the research, shown that becoming obese or fat or morbidly obese, whatever word you want to use that you're okay with, it has been clearly shown time and time again that is going to make that diabetes that maybe would have lain dormant, that you wouldn't have even noticed, crop up much easier. So again, it's just frustrating because it's the language that's being used that is very misleading. Because to say that, it's just common sense, right? To say that, oh yeah, obesity doesn't cause diabetes. It's like, clearly there is some sort of correlation here, right?
We have higher rates in we have like other things that might affect it in regards to marginalization and oppression, race, things like that, but it's not something that fatness causes, or you can eat your way into being diabetic. And so if we're worried about
this, it's just so silly to me, right? Because like, to use myself as an example, when I was in 10th grade, I remember my mom, again, there are certain things that I agree with what they say here. Like a lot of the fat positive people, like, you know, tricking kids into going to the doctor and scaring them, right? That's exactly what happened to me. When I was in 10th grade, I was literally tricked into going to the doctor. Part of it because I was a little asshole and I just would not go, would not listen, didn't care, right? Which, you know, when you're a growing kid, going to the doctor is very important, but I was like, absolutely not, right? And maybe that a big reason for that was because I was literally terrified of how I was going to be treated. So again, I agree with that, right? Like you should not be afraid to go to the doctor just because you're overweight. And that's how I felt, right? But that's besides the point. I went there and they finally got me to do these tests and they basically told me that I was pre-diabetic. So, and I remember I was like, "Oh, this is good. Like I'm fine. Like I am not even, like I'm going to be fine. I'm not even pre-diabetic. So I have a few more years." Cuz I remember I used to think that I am going to eventually get it. And that's basically what they told me, but they were like, "You have a few more years." And I was just like, "Awesome. This is great," right? But clearly, I am no longer in that position. And the thing that changed was my weight. So I am no longer dealing with that diagnosis. What do you like? If I was still 400 pounds, do I think that I would have diabetes? 100%. Like, it just, come on, you know? Like, come on.
Fat kids, what we should be worried about is the stigma that those fat kids are experiencing and not telling them to not be fat because it's not helpful and they're 242 times more likely to experience disordered eating disorder. You know?
So this is something that I really disagree with a lot of times whenever I talk about this stuff. It's like, because the way that we have done things hasn't been for the best, right? And there have been issues. We should just completely do nothing, right? It's like we should just let kids gain as much weight as they want and let them do the eat the foods that they want, which they get into a little bit later, which is like genuinely kind of hilarious. The proposition they make on how kids should eat food and stuff is very funny. But like, just because a way that we have been doing things isn't working doesn't mean that we should just scrap it all and like just do nothing. Like, I think that that's a ridiculous type of like way to go about it, right?
So I'm going to link to these, but we've got stats from nationaleatingdisorders.org, and I'm going to link to Alyssa's story highlights, which also links to the studies that show like what are rates of childhood diabetes, what are rates of eating disorders in children, let's look at the rates of childhood fatness, and then and big content warning there, because there's O words all over the place and there's stigmatizing language all over the place, because some of the stuff about like, oh my god, all of the kids are fat and they're just so terrible and stuff, obviously has a shit ton of awful stuff in it. And then
so it's like burying your head in the sand. Like, this is happening. It is, right? It is happening. There are more children that are obese now than there ever have been. That's a fact, right? And that clearly is not good for the long term of most people, right? That is a bad... It's just so weird to me. Like, because you yourself, right, have found this type of life that you enjoy living, and that you are happy being, fat or obese, whatever word that you are comfortable with, because you have found that, you think everyone should be that. But the fact of the matter is, there are many people that if they got to the size that you are right now, and I don't mean this with any disrespect, they would be very, very unhealthy. It's awesome that you seem to be healthy and you seem to be doing fine, and that's awesome, right? But not everyone is going to feel that way if they got to your size. And so it feels almost a little selfish, like I want more people to be just like me because I'm fine, but it's like, yeah, but not everyone is going to be fine. And so like, let's let them make their own decisions and decide whether or not they want to, go on with losing weight or not, right?
then they're like, oh, actually, just, whatever, a few kids are fat, whatever, no big deal, but it's terrible. So just caution on that. And also in this episode, I'm just going to be briefly talking about things like eating disorder, prevalence, and things like that. So if that doesn't feel good to you, or, concerns about weight in kids, then skip this episode or skip like 15 minutes ahead, because then I'll be talking about how to raise a fat positive kid. Okay, so.
All right, we are going to skip ahead, actually, because a lot of this stuff it really is kind of not worth getting into. So we're gonna get into when they talk about raising a fat positive kid, which I'm not sure if they're going to bring it up. They bring it up earlier in the video, but they don't have any children. They don't plan on having any children. They definitely do not want to have any children, but yet they are giving advice on what parents should do with their children. I just love it. It's my favorite thing ever. All right, let's
that you're never going to get a boyfriend if you're fat. Oh my God, I've got a boyfriend. I'm having sex with someone. Someone wants to have sex with me.
Heyo.
Even though I am this awful, disgusting person. And now I'm like, no! What a little angel you were! Oh my God! And obviously experienced abuse, which was awful. So it didn't help me, because I was constantly just like, how can I get thin? I need to be thin, because if I'm thin, then I'm going to receive love and praise and lots of good things. Okay, so how can we protect our kids? And obviously I don't have kids, so I'm not an expert on how to talk to kids, but I know about creating environments which are...
You serious, my brother?
...supportive to fat positivity.
I'm just sorry. It's just funny that's how you introduce this segment. How do we raise our kids? I don't have any kids or want to have any kids, but you should listen to what I have to say here. Whew. Okay, I'm sorry.
So in this example, the story that I shared at the beginning, the doctor saying, your child is fat, and oh my God, it must be because they are doing X, Y, Z, and you're a terrible parent. And, kids have been taken from their parents because they are fat, which is fucked up. 1 billion% totally fucked up.
Okay. Yes, if that's all that's happening, if the kid is just a little bit overweight, then yeah, that's wrong, right? But I would venture to guess that there is usually a little bit more going on than just the fact that the kid is overweight, right? And this is coming from someone that actually has experience being taken away from their parents at one point in their life. Just saying. And guess what? The situation I was in when I was taken away was very bad. All right? It was very bad. And there were a lot of things that contributed to me being taken away from my parents. And I would venture to guess that there was probably a lot more going on than just the kid was eating too many Cheetos and they were kind of chubby. I'm just going to say that from my own experience, okay?
Okay. Because guess what? Fat kids exist, have always existed, will always exist. Fatness is just a normal part of being a human being. Yeah, no? And I think about it, we're so stressed about, is my kid fat? Let's not have fat kids because it's going to mean that this and that and whatever. That as soon as a kid starts showing any signs of being chubby or fat or whatever, then people are like doing the sign of the cross and being like, oh my God, please, we need to stop this before it gets out of control. And they pathologize a normal kid's body and start messing around with it, and I think about how how humans grow, and how if you've not seen a kid for a couple of years or a year or over the summer or whatever, and they're like 10 and they've gone from 10 to the age of 10 and a half or 11, and then you see them and you're like, what the fuck, you've grown like 17 feet, like you used to be at my knees and now you're taller than me, what the heck? And it's we wouldn't be like, oh my god, quick, get them to the doctor, they've got this weird stretch thing going on, and we've got all of these stretched kids going out here and just being tall. And no, we'd be like, oh, well, that's just a normal part of growing. And just because some kids might grow taller quicker and some kids might grow wider and then tall and then maybe wider some more and then maybe a little bit taller but maybe not, and so if the kid is not doing the wide and the tall at the same time, or just the tall and not the wide, then we're like, oh my god, a kid can't just do the wide. And we just be like, oh, well, the child is growing.
Okay. So there is a difference between getting taller and getting wider. Now, I will say that when you are a child, right, obviously growth spurts, things are going on, right? So I do agree that we do seem to overly fixate on whether or not a child is like, oh, they've gained a little bit of weight. I think that it is a bad thing to encourage children, literal children, to go on diets. I agree with that. But sometimes when a kid is getting wider, as they said, and it's happening very, very rapidly, that can be a problem. And maybe there is a reason for that. Maybe that child is not, getting outside very much. Maybe the way that they are eating is really messed up. Maybe they're not getting the right nutrition at home. I think that you can look at the fact that if a child is like blowing up in size, width, and nothing else is changing, maybe it's worth looking into that, right? Because there is just a difference between growing wide and growing tall. I'm sorry, but there is a difference. To say that it is the same thing is science fiction. I'm sorry, it's science fiction.
I just think about how it's kind of like just overreacting. When I say overreacting, there should be no reaction apart from supporting a kid in living maybe temporarily in a body that is marginalized. Maybe they just happen to be a fat child that turns into a fat adult, and that's absolutely fine too. And that's, no problem whatsoever. And so the only thing that we would need to do to react to that, and even if we had small kids, is to talk about discrimination and talk about body diversity. So in this instance, the doctor is like, your kid's fat and you are a piece of shit because you have a fat kid. So this is dream world. This is if you knew it was coming, had rehearsed your script beforehand, was feeling great, had no social...
So again, like I always say, what's frustrating about this is because there are good points in talks like this, right? There are good points that are made, right? Like I genuinely think that there is a problem, especially with kids when they go to the doctor, of feeling afraid to go to the doctor, because I was that kid, right? There are kids that are afraid. They feel like they're going to get judged. They feel like the doctor's just going to say, oh, you're fat again. Like that's a problem. That should not be the main focus of when you are a growing child of going to the doctor. But just because that's a problem doesn't mean that we should, like, everything else is like, oh, well, this problem, and so everything else is no big deal. It's just, it goes too far every time, right? Every single time it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I kind of agree with that. And then it keeps going, and I'm like, whoa, hey, whoa, slow down, right?
Whoa, brother, whoa, now. You got too much dip on your chip.
That's how I feel every time I listen to one of these things.
Social anxiety. There was no power imbalance between you and the doctor. All of them, perfect stars need to align. That is probably not going to happen for most people, and that's through no fault of your own. Is if the doctor starts talking about the child's weight, is saying, I'm going to stop you right there. Hey child, can you step outside if that's possible? Or can we talk in private, doctor or healthcare provider? So that's the first thing. Can we remove the child from experiencing potential trauma? We might not be able to, right? Like,
I mean, I don't necessarily completely disagree with that. I think that these conversations are important, right? I think that if a child is gaining weight significantly and the parent is there. The parent is the one that should be, you know, learning about what can be done. They should be figuring things out. The kid shouldn't be made to feel bad. Because again, guess what? Kids are kids, yes, of course, but they're not stupid, right? I was a kid and I was fat. And guess what? I knew I was fat. I didn't need a doctor to tell me. Surprise, I had a brain also, right? And so it wasn't like, oh, the doctor called me fat. I had never even thought of that. I am dumbfounded right now. I'm perplexed. I'm kerfuffled. I had no clue. Can't believe it. I was like, yeah, doctor, trust me, I know. Want to know why? Because everyone lets me know, all right? It's not a surprise.
Like if it's a 3-year-old, you can't be like, oh, 3-year-old, go outside and, you know, play with some traffic. But if that's possible, we want to try and avoid the kid experiencing it. Then saying to the doctor, I don't expose my kids to weight bias. So we don't talk about that. We don't talk about weight like it's a problem. That's not going to happen. Again, this is dream world that you might say this. If you can say this, like if someone can say this during the doctor's visit, I would be like, wow. Because there's so much going on, right? You know, you're going to go in for a doctor's visit and you're not expecting the doctor to be a bell end. Well, maybe we are. If you're fat, then you probably are. But in that moment, even someone like me, you know, your brain is like, oh my God, what's happening? Oh shit, it's happening. Oh my God, they're saying this thing. Oh God, the child is hearing it. Oh, what do I say? And then you're like, well, I think it's fine. You know, you come out with something and that's normal because our brains are like, you know, fight, flight, freeze, that type of thing. So, and so if you can't say to the doctor, listen, let's not talk about this. You could, you know, just nod and smile and be like, yeah, sure, great, whatever, and defend your child as much as you can. But if you can't do that for whatever reason, then you can do damage control after you leave the doctors. So, it's that remove, reduce, protect that I've spoken to you a lot about before. Can you remove the thing? Maybe, maybe not. Can you reduce the exposure? Can you like say, okay, end of conversation. Oh, actually, I'm here today to talk about little Timmy's knees or whatever. Can we get back to that? And they'll be like, yes, because he's got sore knees because he's fat. And then if you can't reduce, can you protect? And so protect that gorgeous brain of yours and of your children, multiple, whatever. And so depending on their age, you may want to have a conversation with them afterwards about what happened. And
there was a part where, I don't know where it is. This part is so funny. There's not much for me to say there, right? Like, yes, I think that there are times where you go to the doctor and they can be assholes. It happens. It happened to me, right? I don't know, you know, what it's like for children now because I'm almost 30, right? But that sucks. And I think that having a parent that understands that and you can console, I don't think that that's being weak or being like, oh, just putting my head in the sand. It's like, hey, yeah, that sucks, right? Like, you know, I love you regardless of your size and all of that stuff. But again, it's just hard to say this is what you should do because, again, every kid is different. Every situation is going to be different. So I think it's like silly to be like, this is what you should do. I'm a person that has no children and doesn't want to have any, but this is what you should do, parent. I don't know. It's just like, it's just so silly to me.
everyone's going to fuck up, right?
So this section of the video, they start talking about your relationship with food and how kids will perceive that relationship. But again, the example that is used is, I'll let y'all watch, you know?
Everyone is trying to do their best in life, and so there are going to be times where you fuck up and you're like, oh God, but if we're moving towards a place where kids know that they're safe and they have a safe spot to land in regards to their body and their uniqueness is beautiful, right? And we're talking about food. If you want to learn more about raising an intuitive eating kid, then and there's that book, Body Happy Kids, that I'm in, and then Ellen Satter Institute. talks about the division of responsibility from toddlers onwards. And so the division of responsibility with kids, this is raising an intuitive eating child, is you decide what, when, and where a child is fed, and the child decides whether and how much. And so, like, a simple thing that I see is a simple switch that we can make is thinking about how the way that we talk about food. Like, sweets, oh, they're bad. The sweets you have after dinner, the sweets are the treat. Eat the dinner first because that's the yucky food, that's the boring food, and then you can have the good food. The little switch that you can do is giving dessert with dinner at the same time. And knowing that the kid is probably, at least for the first bit, going to be having the thing which is the dessert item and asking for more, and then you're going to give them as much as they want because they have learnt that thing is like magical and maybe a little bit taboo, and you can't have it because if you do then you're going to get fat, and oh my god, fat is bad. And you know, imagine if we gave that message.
So the solution is, while you're eating dinner, instead of having dessert at the end, right, it's let the kid choose what they eat. So if they want to have the cookie, they can have the cookie and then have another one and another one and another one. And then eventually
Another one. Another one. Another one. Another one.
the kid will be like, okay, the cookie is whatever. I want to have real food. You really think that that is going to be what happens? Like, this is... I don't know what world this person is in, because that is not happening. That is not happening. No matter what the relationship the child has with food, what relationship the parents have with food, how they talk about food, how they if they say cookies are totally normal or cookies are bad food, and it's you have to be, oh my goodness, it's like you have to earn it, right? I'm telling you right now, there's a reason it is hard to not eat too many cookies, because they taste good. It has nothing to do with social conditioning. It has nothing to do with, oh, the world around. It has to do with the ingredients in the cookie that make it really yummy. And it makes you want to have more cookie. There's a reason these companies exist, and they make sure they manufacture these cookies to taste as good as possible so you continue to eat them. It's not because of the social conditioning that we've been a part of. It's because the cookies taste delicious. And to a kid, there is no shot they are going to choose peas over a cookie. There is no shot.
Are you sure about that?
To say that they will is living in a world that does not exist. Let's keep going.
About other things, you know, like if you were like, oh, don't eat so many peas. No, you can only have peas after you finished your cookie. No, you can only have 3 peas. You can't have 4 peas. Or and hiding the peas in a high cupboard so they can't get access to them. And you know, you secretly eating peas and then saying, oh my God, I had some peas. I'm such a bad person and I should stop eating the peas. They are going to start being like, peas? Give me the peas. When can I have my peas?
That's not going to happen. What? It's not going to happen. Like, you're not going to trick a kid into eating broccoli by being like, ooh, broccoli, it's bad for you. Yummy broccoli, I love it. And they're going to eat it and be like, oh, I actually like this now. No. Again, next to them is cookies that they could choose. You're telling me they're like, I could have the cookies, but you always act like those are just normal. But you act like the broccoli is actually really yummy. So I'm going to choose that. No way, dude. Like, what world? What world? What world? Come on. Come on. Again, there are so many things that I agree with, but sometimes, not even sometimes, a lot of times, the ways that they say we should go about things it's like you are living in another planet. Like, I don't know where you live, but that is not real life at all.
Come on now, I want some peas. And of course, you know, cookies probably do taste nicer than peas to kids. And but you know, we're really
I like how at the end of this analogy they're like, yeah, but I mean cookies are better. It's like, well, it's like you don't even believe what you're saying. You're just like, well, yeah, of course cookies are better though. So they'll probably eat those. Yeah, I agree. It's not the best analogy there, you know?
really working hard to help kids be disordered around food, right? And make it a big deal. And if we work to not make it a big deal and just give kids as much food as they want, within, you know, there will be rules set too. Like, I'm not an expert in this, but, you know, for example, you're just about
Clearly you are not. Thank you for letting us know. We had no idea. We all figured that out together, I guess. So, well, thank you for letting us know. It's very nice of you.
to make dinner, and the kid says, oh, can I have food? And you say, oh, you know, it's not, because you decide when, right? You can say, yeah, absolutely, we're going to have dinner in 10 minutes, and so we're going to eat then. Or they might say at nighttime, you know how kids stall to get into bed, and they're like, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, I need to go to the toilet. And so, you know, if they're like, I'm hungry, the messaging that you are, you know, that you're saying of like, you know, you're not hungry, you're being greedy or whatever, something like that, versus, oh yeah, absolutely, the kitchen's closed right now, but if what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to remind you when the kitchen's open again, so that you can have some food, and not, you know, shaming them or telling them, you know, making out like it's a bad thing. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it. That's all we're gonna say about this video here. But I wanted to share that with you again. I think that it's I struggle because, like, there are things that are brought up that I agree with, but then there are things that are brought up that I'm just like, what world are you living in? Why would you think that would work? You know? And I just wanted to share that with you and share my thoughts. I would love to know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. I always appreciate reading the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and I'll see you next time. Peace.